Hi, I'm Peter Schweizer. This is Eric Eggers, and you know us from the Drill Down, but we're not here for that podcast. We're here for something very exciting and new. GAI is launching a new podcast called On Background with Susan Crabtree. Susan is a GAI fellow. She's an author and she's an award-winning journalist. She's done great journalism. She's broken a lot of news. I'm excited about this new project.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're going to bring a lot of new and different information. It's obviously with somebody else, not you, so it's going to cover different material than we cover on the Drill Down. Susan, thank you for having us basically as guests on your podcast. Why are we calling this On Background?
Well, I wanted to thank you so much for your continued support. I'm so grateful for it. So we're calling it On Background because when an investigative reporter agrees to go on background with a source, it's a confidentiality agreement. So they can obtain real information and there's a trust relationship there. And that's often how reporters get the real scoop of what's truly going on. So we want to fill you in on the real story behind the headlines and how investigative journalists go about getting it.
And I think it's worth pointing out that when Peter says you're an award-winning journalist because of the information, the scoops you're able to get. And we just want to just briefly talk. I know it's important to you. You recently won last year the Dow Prize in Journalism. What is that and why does that matter so much?
Yeah, so that term, award-winning, gets thrown around a lot these days. But let me just tell you that I am so humbled and deeply honored to have been a recipient of the Dow Award's second annual prize. So the Dow Award is sponsored by the Young Americans for Freedom organization, and it's now giving the fully discredited legacy media-run Pulitzer a run for its money. So Matt Taibbi and his team won the first Dow Award for their Twitter files in 2023, and I was the second winner for my series of exclusive reports on the Secret Service failures after Butler. And Miranda Devine was the host of the awards gala. So I'm in extremely good company and owe a debt of gratitude to the Young Americas Foundation. And Peter sits on its board, so there's a lot of synergy here today.
And I was going to say, Susan, by the way, I'm sorry to interrupt. This is like a real award. I mean, there is a six-figure cash prize, I believe, associated with this.
No big deal. No big deal.
But the point is, it's a serious award, and it really is well-deserved. You broke great stories on the Secret Service. You've done it on a series of other things, and there's a lot of exciting news going on. And I'm excited in terms of what you're working on today.
Well, and we're going to talk about that in just a second because there is actually breaking news that Susan has. She's been following and listening to these press conferences. But for the people that have known the Drill Down, this is how you know it's a different podcast. Normally on the Drill Down, Peter Schweizer talks about his money. Today, he bragged about somebody else's money. So, that's a horse of a different color, and we're off.
And you're not talking about...
well, I have no money. So... because I'm not breaking these stories, unlike Susan. No, so Susan has, we were going to talk about Gavin Newsom. We will talk about Gavin Newsom, but it's interesting because one of the things that we've covered a lot of, and Susan wrote this great book along with Jed McFadder, Fool's Gold, and talks about actually the ways in which Gavin Newsom is adjacent to some of the people responsible for some of the fires in California. But there's breaking news today, Susan, about they've arrested someone in connection with the Palisades fires. What have you learned, and what do they need to know?
Well, the DOJ just announced this morning, that 29-year-old Jonathan Rickennecht, he's a Florida resident, he's the one who sparked that fire. And it seems like he did it with a cigarette. And something so just, careless, I guess they just said that he did it maliciously. The fire ended up killing 12 people and destroying more than 7,000 buildings. So this is no small thing. And I'm so glad that it means that there's justice being served here, but it really isn't a complete justice situation, as you know, because we have Gavin Newsom and Mayor Bass and their gross ineptitude that was really, really at fault here. And it could have prevented the decimation of an entire town and so many lives that were just broken because of this. So we have one culprit, and also we know that that SoCal Edison was the culprit for the other fire that was burning that day and also caused so much devastation. So
Yeah, it's one of my favorite phrases is never mistake incompetence with conspiracy. And I think, as you noted, Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass could certainly be accused of incompetence. But based on some of the reporting I've seen you do on this story, maybe a little conspiracy too for this kid that started the fire. They found AI-generated images of a blaze, like of infernos, on some of his personal devices. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. It was sort of disturbing Chat GPT images that he created of a dystopian fire taking over a city, an inferno. And he was listening to rap music. They won't say which song. But yeah, this is just, like I said, this is one person who sparked the fire, but really it's the gross mismanagement of the state of California and the city of Los Angeles that's really to blame here. And, we've reported on that. There's a whole wildfire chapter in our book, Fool's Gold, where we get into sort of the money and politics between the utilities that cause so many of these fires. So now we have the culprit, but we still have the fact that what happened to the fact that 33% of fire trucks were not operational that day? Why were the reservoirs empty? These fires been happening for so many years. It felt like when I moved back to California, I'm a native Californian, and I moved back to California, it felt like it was sort of like some kind of third world country, that this was inevitable. Gavin Newsom likes to say, we don't have a fire season anymore. It's year round. And we're going into that really heart of the terrible fire season right now. So I think everybody is on edge, and we want to make sure that our government is running smoothly. And it's just not the case that people can, sit back on their laurels and think that, that their homes are going to be safe anymore. We have an insurance crisis in California, and we have seen that they're not doing anything after they've been warned time and time again that for forest management. President Trump came in 2018 and warned Gavin Newsom that needed to be forest management going on across the state to keep these fires at bay, and that never happened.
No, it never happened. And actually, Gavin Newsom is a perfect segue. It's an unfortunate segue, but it's a perfect segue because I remember we spoke often, and we would watch the way Gavin Newsom seemed to mismanage the situation so poorly in California. Not just the Trumps kind of telling him what to do and he's not doing it, but then all the reservoirs are empty, and there's the fake phone call with Joe Biden and everything else, and it's like, oh man, this guy's career is done. But he does seem, you hate to use the metaphor, but he seems to have risen from the literal ashes of the fires, and he's now out there kind of considered a front runner to challenge for the presidency in 2028. And he's running this Proposition 50, and you've done some incredible reporting on this. But what just kind of, for people that don't know because they don't follow California, talk about just briefly, give us some bullet points on what Gavin Newsom's doing in California and why it matters and how it may actually impact significantly the shape of Congress in this country.
Yeah. Well, it's sad to say that Newsom is saying he can't give firefighters a raise because the state is broke, but he has enough money to spend $300 million on a special election to redraw the state's congressional maps and really decimate the amount of Republicans' representation that they have in Congress. So, he says it's an answer to Texas, but really what's going on here is he's seeing an opportunity to, get himself in the news, inject himself, because the failures of California, he can't run for the White House on that. So what he's doing is he's saying, I'm going to prevent 8 seats. I'm going to erase 8 seats, maybe 6 to 8 seats in Congress, Republican seats. And that's going to be what I'm going to run on. That's what I'm going to ingratiate myself with the Democratic Party about. So it's against our state constitution to do this. Unlike Texas, it's against the law in California to have mid-decade redistricting. And yet he's going forward this. He had the legislature put their stamp of approval on it so that we will have this special election. And I think that the majority of the voters out here in California are a little bit nervous that this could actually happen. And he's saying it's it's going to save democracy. But obviously, if you look into it, taking away, I guess I would say 6 to 8 seats in California, wiping the Republicans out almost completely is not a small d Democratic move at all.
So is your view on the ground that this is going to pass? Would you bet, if you had to bet, that this is going to pass?
I think I just interviewed the California Republican Party chair, Corinne Rankin, and she's getting more money by the day. Congressional Leadership Fund, the House Republicans Leadership PAC, is just donated $5 million. I don't know if they're expecting some more. Charlie Munger Jr. has donated more than $30 million to the No on Prop 50 side. But the pro-Newsom forces have twice as much money, and they're getting it from the unions. And so the teachers union and the nurses union, I don't know what eradicating congressional seats for Republicans has anything to do with the nurses union agenda, but they feel strongly enough to be giving millions and millions of dollars. And so they're being outspent 2-1, as usual in California. The Republican side is getting outspent 2-1.
And you said something really important, Susan. I want to help kind of elevate that, because I think you have so much information, and it's kind of, it's all coming, but I want the listener to understand, because you used a couple different words here: eradicate the Republicans in California. So how many congressional seats does California have now, and how many do Republicans currently occupy? Because remember, right, this is a state that Donald Trump won 38% of in 2024. So 6 million people in California voted for Donald Trump for president. And so what's the current congressional delegation there, the breakdown?
Yeah, it's 9 Republicans out of 52. So we have 38% of the vote, nearly 40% of the vote, but we have 9 Republicans out of 52. So
and that's 9 now. And so currently it's 9, and that's too many. And so Gavin Newsom if this initiative passes, which is again in response to Texas, but as you've noted correctly, it's because it's actually was against the law. It was against the Constitution. Gavin Newsom had one-party rule in the Assembly, got them to do it. So the 9 Republican congressional delegations would go down to what, you think?
I would say 2-4. That's being, judicious. I think people are really deeply concerned. He's going after a lot of his foes. Kevin Kiley's a very effective member of Congress, and he's very young, very rising star in the GOP. He's targeted him time and time again in this way, and he's dedicated to trying to take him out. But all along the Central Valley, which is usually swing districts, and in Orange County, they've divvied up that county so much. Used to be a Republican stronghold, and then it became purple. Now it's going to be blue territory, I believe. So it doesn't look good if it passes, and it's a low turnout election. So people are really on edge out here.
It's the only thing on the ballot.
Yeah. And so, and it's interesting. There have been reports that Kevin McCarthy, former Speaker of the House, said he was going to raise $100 million. Not looking quite like he's getting to that figure. It's surprising to me there's not more of a fight being put on. But I'm wondering, you're on the ground there. Is this a mail-in ballot, or is this you have to actually go and pull a lever somewhere?
Everything in California is mail-in ballot these days.
Well, that's great. As we learned, that's the best way to do it. Nothing can go wrong.
Absolutely. There's this new thing coming out in California that even your dog can vote. There was a woman who was prosecuted because her dog the only reason why they found out her dog was registered to vote. The only reason why they found out about it is she put her dog on Instagram with an "I voted" sticker on him. That's how she got prosecuted. This is the state of play in California's elections today.
Yeah, I hate to generalize. If the dog was a pit bull, probably voted Republican. If the dog was a poodle, I'm betting Democrat.
Well, it sounds like even poodles are better represented in California than Republicans. I mean, going back to the thing, for them to have 2 congressional seats out of the 52, there is no ethnic group that you would be okay having such a fraction of leadership or representation, considering they represent like over a third of the population. That's I can't believe they're doing it, but that's they're bringing in. It's not just that they're kind of getting away with it. Gavin Newsom's bragging about it. He's bringing in AOC and Elizabeth Warren, and they have nationalized it. It's called like the Stop Trump thing. I mean, they've put Trump in the name of the actual provision. So it's not about California. He's successfully elevated himself as the check from California on Donald Trump.
It's funny, Susan. I've said this numerous times. Eric knows because I repeat it all the time. I think one of Trump's great political skills is he brings out the absolute worst in his opponents. So they overreach, they stretch. I'm not saying that this initiative is not going to pass, but the notion, Gavin Newsom just a couple of months ago was sort of positioning himself as, I'm the great unifier. I'm going to sit down with Charlie Kirk. I'm going to sit down with Steve Bannon, and we're going to have honest conversations. Now he wants to wipe them from the face of the political earth in California. And I think that Trump is bringing that out in him, and it is going to, I think, hurt him politically going forward, because as much as he wants to position himself as, I'm the California guy that gets along with everybody, this is completely the opposite.
That's true. His phrase is, he likes to say he's approaching everything with an open hand, not a closed fist. But now he's clenched that fist, right? And he's trying to clobber Trump because he can't run on his record. It's everything that he's done is just a failed state. He's thrown $24 billion upwards of, we write in the book, at homelessness. Complete failure. He's denied money for Proposition 36, which was a crackdown on crime bill. Now, that was passed the state last fall. 70% of the state, really wide majorities, wanted a crackdown on crime because they were doing all of this, George Gascon, soft on crime, reducing penalties from felonies to misdemeanors. And it just wasn't working. People were sick of it, even in San Francisco, got rid of their prosecutors, their soft on crime prosecutors. So he's denying the money for them too. Just everything that you look at would be a barometer. Every cost in California is the highest in the nation. Insurance, energy, gas prices, inflation, food prices, home prices, everything's the worst. So how can he run on that? Well, the Democratic bench is very thin, as you all know, and he now believes that he just is punching back is the answer for him. Anti-Trump, and these ads that he's running right now in Prop 50, they don't mention what the proposition would actually do. It just says it will stop Trump.
It fights Trump. It's insane. By the way, David, our producer and director for this program, let us know that it's a boxer. The dog was a boxer. So, you were close. Again, independent information
voter, right?
You will not find anywhere else, but on this On Background podcast. Now, it's funny. Just the last kind of topic we want to cover today. It's a perfect thing. What you said is that how Trump brings out the worst in everybody. There's Gavin Newsom's time as California governor is coming to an end, and so there's now a campaign to see who will replace him. One of the candidates for perhaps the leading candidate as a Democrat to replace Gavin Newsom is former Congressperson Katie Porter, and it seems like the mention of Trump was enough to provoke a less than positive response from her. This is 3 minutes, but it's well worth your time if somehow you haven't heard it. Here's Katie Porter responding to a question about this Prop 50 that Gavin Newsom is pushing.
What do you say to the 40% of California voters who you'll need in order to win, who voted for Trump?
How would I need them in order to win, ma'am?
Well, unless you think you're going to get 60% of the vote. You think you'll get 60%. Everybody who did not vote for Trump will vote for you. That's what you're saying.
In a general election, yes. If it is me versus a Republican, I think that I will win the people who did not vote for Trump.
What if it's you versus another Democrat?
I don't intend that to be the case.
So how do you not intend that to be the case? Are you going to ask them not to run?
No, I'm saying I'm going to build the support. I have the support already in terms of name recognition. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to do the very best I can to make sure that we get through this primary in a really strong position. But let me be clear with you. I represented Orange County. I represented a purple area. Mm-hmm. I have stood on my own 2 feet and won Republican votes before. That's not something every candidate in this race can say. If you're from a deep blue area, if you're from LA or you're from Oakland, you don't have an experience.
But you just said you don't need those Trump voters.
But you asked me if I needed them to win.
So you don't
I feel like this is unnecessarily argumentative. What is your question?
The question is the same thing I asked everybody, that this is being called the empowering voters to stop Trump's power grab. Every other candidate has answered this question. This is not
correct. And I said I support it.
So, and the question is, what do you say to the 40% of voters who voted for Trump?
Oh, I'm happy to say that. It's the do you need them to win part that I don't understand. I'm happy to answer the question as you have it written, and I'll answer it.
And we've also asked the other candidates, do you think you need any of those 40% of California voters to win? And you're saying, no, you don't.
No, I'm saying I'm going to try to win every vote I can. And what I'm saying to you is that...
Well, to those voters, okay, so you...
I don't want to keep doing this. I'm going to call it. Okay. Thank you.
You're not going to do the interview with us?
Nope, not like this. I'm not. Not with 7 follow-ups to every single question you ask.
Every other candidate has answered
I don't
our
care.
follow-ups.
I don't care. I want to have a pleasant, positive conversation in which you ask me about every issue on this list. And if every question you're going to make up a follow-up question, then we're never going to get there.
Ms.
And
Porter,
we're just going to circle around.
I am an investigative
I have never had to do
reporter.
this before, ever.
You've never had to have a
end an
conversation
interview.
with
To end
a
an
reporter?
interview.
Okay, but every other candidate has done this.
What part of I'm me? I'm running for governor because I'm a leader. So I am going to make.
So you're not going to answer questions from reporters? Okay, why don't we go through? I will continue to ask follow-up questions because that's my job as a journalist, but I will go through and ask these, and if you don't want to answer, you don't want to answer. So nearly every legislative...
I don't want to have an unhappy experience with you, and I don't want this all on camera.
I don't want to have an unhappy experience with you either. I would love to continue to ask these questions so that we can show our viewers what every candidate feels about every one of these issues that they care about.
I'm 100% going to start using the I don't want to have an unhappy experience with you on my children. Susan, you've interviewed people. You're in California. You follow that reporter who did a great job on Twitter. What was your sort of reaction after seeing that clip, and what does it say about the state of Democrat politics in California right now?
I mean, that was just who was being adversarial there. That was just a layup question. It's an easy, politics 101. You say you want to represent all of California. You don't get into the politics of, who you're for and who you're against. But I think it's the perfect representation of what the California Democratic Party and its representatives have become, which is entitled and lazy and coddled by the media. So, she can't even be bothered to answer what is not even a challenging question. So it's just something that I think it's walking away from a polite conversation. She's threatening the journalists, basically. And I just think, you got to just do your due diligence and have your platform ready. And if you got to be ready for these follow-ups, and that's just not what Gavin Newsom has been used to in the California media, and certainly not what the leading candidate for California governor is used to. She freaked out for no reason, and it's just indicative of the state of the media in California.
Well, this new podcast, Susan, is all about accountability and focusing on accountability in California politics. You ask those tough questions in your book, Fool's Gold. You ask those questions in journalism. What's it going to take for California to turn around? And by turn around, I don't necessarily mean become, bright red Trump, but become more balanced in its politics. Because I think if I'm correct, in the California legislature, they have a supermajority. So they can literally ignore the Republicans. The Republicans can't even filibuster. They can't challenge everything.
They ignored the law, which is how they got this prop passed in the first place.
Yeah. So it's, I'm just wondering, what is it actually going to take? You talked about and you've reported on the incompetent response to the fires. What is it actually going to take for California to wake up? Or do you feel like it's just kind of gone?
So there's two things that are going on. After we have exposed in our book, Fool's Gold, I Never Give Up a Chance to plug the book, the corruption in California, which everybody needs to know about. There's two other initiatives that are going on. One is to establish voter ID, which will help clean up the voter rolls and establish voter integrity in California. And the other effort is voter registration. Turning Points USA, Charlie Kirk's legacy organization, is now working with a number of organizations in California, and they are trying to push for registering independents, because that's a bigger group, one of the biggest growing groups in California, and disenchanted conservatives who don't think their vote matters anymore. And hopefully both of those initiatives will go a long way in turning the tide and making things, conservatives feel like they have a voice again in California.
You remember the voter ID thing would be huge. I think it was Huntington Beach as a locality said, we want to mandate voter ID in all of our stuff. And then Gavin Newsom came in at the state level and said, absolutely not. So, I mean, it's as someone who, we cover election integrity here. that would be a game changer, I think, for any place that does it. And it would be a massive if California does it. But that's one of the stories that we're going to continue to monitor, not just California stories, national stories, but we're going to pay close attention on this podcast to see kind of like how the tides turn and who are the forces working to shape it. So it's an exciting new venture for us with the Government Accountability Institute and Susan Crabtree. So Peter, thank you for being here and helping us to launch this first podcast as part of a new project for the organization you steward so well.
Very, very, thank you. It's very, very exciting. Susan's a great partner for GAI because she's dogged, she's committed to the truth, she's willing to hit whoever needs to be hit, right? Malfeasance, if it's happening on the left or the right, it doesn't matter. We're very excited. I would encourage everybody to subscribe to the podcast On Background with Susan Crabtree and look forward to future podcasts. You're going to learn things here that you're not going to learn anywhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. I just would encourage not to hit Katie Porter because it does look like she hits back. So maybe just be easy. Whatever you say, Miss Porter. But anyway, Susan, it's a great thing. And yeah, so thank you so much. And we can't wait to be here and continue to bring more episodes. So Susan, congratulations and go kill it.
Thank you so much, y'all. I'm very, very appreciative of all your help.